Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's better on draft.
Hello and welcome to Better on Draft. I'm Rob, one of your hosts, and with me today is Wendy. Hey, Wendy, how are you doing? What are you drinking?
I am enjoying a Yuengling Black and Tan bought at my favorite local store here.
You
How
know,
exciting is that?
I used to say the Yuengling Black and Tan was the best beer you could get in bottles, and I think I saw a can now.
Yeah, well, I've got it in a can.
Okay.
That's what I had. It was right in the front of the store. You know, we couldn't get it forever, and now it's every store you walk in, front and center. So,
yeah, that's just a wonderful beer. For myself, I've got a Weizengut from Beer Brewery, a nice Hefeweizen. This is my first beer I've had since getting sick last weekend. So, cheers. And also with us today, we have Brian from Phantom Canyon Brewing. Hi, Brian. How are you? And what are you drinking?
Hey, Rob and Wendy. I'm actually drinking water right now. I'm actually on vacation with some friends in New Orleans and just came from Brew Carré, which is a brewery here in the French Quarter that I'm visiting. I just had the last beer that I had was, and I'm sorry I don't have it here to show everybody, but it was actually a Lichtenheiner, which is a beer that you don't really get at too many breweries nowadays, but kind of a smoky sour beer, and it was fantastic. So I'd really want to shout out that brewery that I just came from, and they were fantastic. They had a bunch of really awesome beers on tap. So right now I'm just drinking water, being responsible. So I'll probably get back to it here in the French Quarter in the next hour or two.
Yeah, you know what they say about water is that you shouldn't drink it because fish piss in it. But sometimes we must do as we must do. Toots in the chat was having a two-tide shadow stout.
Cheers.
Cheers. So Brian, welcome. You said you're in New Orleans right now, but you come to us from Colorado Springs, Phantom Canyon. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit first about yourself and your brewing experience?
Sure. I've been at Phantom Canyon for about 16, 17 months now. I was a home brewer for a really long time. I kind of fell in love with craft beer and home brewing while I was in the military. I was stationed in Montana, Great Falls, Montana, years and years ago, and I had a friend, actually one of the friends that I'm here, vacationing with. He came to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to brew a beer in my kitchen?" And I was like, "Sure." And then we destroyed the kitchen, as most home brewing stories go. And I kind of fell into the craft, and it was really my move from Montana to Colorado where I kind of went off the deep end and really got into judging different beer styles, trying all different sorts of things. It was about the time that there were a bunch of really great craft breweries opening in Colorado, like great Belgian breweries, just great American craft breweries, great lager breweries, that really got me interested in the craft. I decided to stay in the military for 21 years, but my military service took me to Germany, which allowed me to travel and try beers in the cities of origin. So I was stationed at Ramstein, which was only a couple hours from Roquefort and Orval, and a bunch of great Belgian breweries, and a quick train ride to Cologne and Prague and Pilsen, where I was able to try a bunch of different beers. When I was getting near the end of my career, I found out about a program called Skill Bridge, which allowed me to do an internship at a local business. I didn't think the military would ever let me actually go brew beer while still being active duty. But that is part of the program. And so for the last 6 months of my career, I worked at a brewery called Cross Strain, which is in Omaha, Nebraska, or right outside of Omaha. And basically learned cellaring, brewing, lab work, packaging, all of that stuff within 6 months. And because I went through that program, at the end of it, they offered me a job, and I stayed on with Cross Train for the next 6 months until my wife's assignment was up. So I married to another active duty military member, and she got an assignment at the Pentagon, and so we moved to Virginia. And so I went through that whole like homebrewing experience, and then transitioning into professional brewing, and then kind of bounced around from there to Virginia, and then back to Colorado, and then kind of ended up where I am at Phantom Canyon, like I said, about 16, 17 months ago.
I was looking you up before the show, of course, because that's what I should do. But I saw that you had recently been at Caboose Brewing, and I was there in February, so I don't think that we overlapped, because that was definitely after you had left. But yeah, the only beer I checked into there was ales for ALS.
ALS, yep.
Yeah, that beer offering that they had at that time. But I went with a work friend. We were just in Virginia for one night, so that was the only time we had for beer. But.
So that's I mean, it was a great experience out in Virginia. I still have great friends out there. The director of brewing operations and the head brewer I still talk to probably on a weekly, if not every couple weeks basis. But it was a great experience out there, and they have two very different. I'm not sure which location you went to, but they have two very, very different locations. The pub location, which is just your standard like brew pub, kind of small, and then their kind of Mosaic District location, which is much bigger and much more open, and more volume and more people kind of moving through. So it was fun, and it was like a good experience for me to go through there, because you had like multiple locations.
Yeah, we've been the one closest to Tyson's Crossing. I'm pretty sure the pub location.
Yeah.
But now you're at Phantom Canyon. How's that going? How has were you head brewer before, or is this your first time?
Yes. So when I moved to Colorado, I reached out to some friends, or actually some friends of friends, and I was able to secure a job as an assistant brewer at Cerberus Brewing, which is in Colorado Springs. So it's a brew pub, a small 7-barrel system, working for Troy, who was the head brewer there. And I really hit it off with Troy. We had a great team of folks there. It was probably my most fun brewing job because of the folks that I worked with, and the front of house, and just kind of the pace of everything that was going on there. We were making really fun beers, and we had a lot of great, like Cerberus has a good reputation in Colorado Springs. And then one day Troy notified us that he was leaving, and that he was going to recommend that I was going to be head brewer. So I moved up to be head brewer, and was there for a couple months when the job at Phantom Canyon opened up. And in Colorado Springs, Phantom Canyon, I mean, we're the oldest brewery in Colorado Springs. We've been, we're in a 120-year-old building. It's a historical site. We've been here for a while. So when that opportunity presents itself, you kind of got to throw your hat in the ring. And I was lucky enough to get selected when I threw my hat in the ring there. So like I worked at Cerberus for a while, was head brewer there for a while, and then like I said, the job opened up at Phantom, and I transitioned over to there about 16, 17 months ago. So.
All right. I'm going to ask one more and let Wendy have a chance at you. But so you're in Colorado Springs. Can you walk us through a little bit, like how does Phantom Canyon sit in the city? How does the city fit within your world, I guess?
I guess geographically, like Colorado Springs is on the Front Range in Colorado. So the state is kind of broken up by obviously the Rocky Mountains. To the east is, really plains. And then, you've got Denver up north and Colorado Springs, which kind of anchor the north and south parts of the state along I-25. Colorado Springs has been growing over, the last couple of years, and is kind of spreading out. Mostly to the east, because to the west is the mountains, and they don't build a lot of homes, on those mountains out there. In terms of like where we are located in the city, right downtown, we're in the Cheyenne building. Right across the street from us is a famous hotel called the Antlers Hilton. We're on Pikes Peak and Cascade. Um, like we're one block off of the main kind of thoroughfare for downtown, which is Tejon. And so we're within walking distance of pretty much anything that you would want to go to, kind of in the downtown area of Colorado Springs. And when the brewery was founded in 1993, the building was saved. It was going to be demolished and turned into a parking lot, like pretty much all of the area around us. And John Hickenlooper, who was the original owner, saved the building and built a brewery within the walls. We've since expanded kind of to the north of our building, and that's where our new brew house is, the one that I kind of inherited. I'm happy because that's a much better brew kit and like brew system than what was there before. But we've kind of expanded our footprint a little bit to where we can provide more volume of beer to our customers that are coming downtown. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
cool.
So before we get into talking about Phantom Canyon, because I definitely have lots of questions, I noticed that you are a cicerone and a beer judge.
Yep.
Do you have like the actual BJCP beer judge title?
I'm BJCP certified judge, and then I'm a certified cicerone. So I've gone through both of those like certifications.
Did you do those at the same time?
What's that?
Did you do those certifications at the same time?
I did not actually. When I was preparing for the cicerone, it was when the cicerone was being developed, and I was actually preparing for a national level BJCP. And so it was when I was in Omaha, Nebraska, and I was studying for national. And then like that's when Ray Daniels kind of developed or was in the process of developing the certified cicerone program. And at the time there was, I think, just certified beer server, certified cicerone, and master. They hadn't even released the advanced cicerone yet. So there wasn't even that in between. So at the time, I was like, well, I've done all this studying for national. Let me just take certified cicerone. And I ended up passing that test. And it was actually pretty rigorous. It was very intimidating. I took it at...
I'm studying for it right now.
It was rough. I took it at Boulevard Brewing in Kansas City. So I drove down to Kansas City and sat through the test and wrote everything out. But to be completely honest, I got lucky with some of the essay questions that they asked, because they asked about areas that I was strong in. And so like I did well on some of those sections, but then on other ones that I wasn't particularly strong on, I feel like I stumbled through them. So at the end of it, at least for mine, I'm not sure if the test has changed, but they do a video section at the end where they like hand you a faucet and they're like, well, how do you take this apart, and how do you clean draft lines and do all these things? And at that time, I was very weak on that. Since then, I've learned a lot about draft just because I've had to, because of the last couple jobs that I've had. But at the time, that was like really a weakness. And when I walked, that was the last thing I did. And I walked out of there and I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, I failed this test. But I ended up doing well on some of the beer and food pairing and off flavor and like a lot of the other stuff early on. So yeah, it was a great experience, but I was certified in 2013 or 14, so it's been a little while.
So I asked that because I have friends that are both, obviously, and I was trying to decide which route I was going to take, because I'm not very good at making beer. I would call myself a home brew failure.
Okay.
I've tried like 3 different times on my own and it doesn't work. I'm going to have somebody come in and actually teach me how to do it so I can do it myself. But I'm really good at drinking beer.
Okay. Me too.
So I'm like, I can talk about beer all day long. So I figured the cicerone and the beer judge would be a better direction for me than learning to brew.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the real advantage to Cicerone, especially if you have the materials that are available, and I know that there's a lot more material now that's made available to prospective, folks that are taking the tests. Um, you go into a lot more than BJCP. Like BJCP is strictly focused on the beer, excuse me, and judging that beer right there. But um, if you want to work in the beer industry, I would say that Cicerone with beer and food pairing, especially for my position at a brew pub, like I'm constantly having conversations with my executive chef and my front of house folks about beer and food pairing. And I'm constantly working with my cellarmen and my other brewers about draft issues. And so Cicerone gives you more of those things versus just like focus on the beer 100%. So I think that that's where, like, if you're going to work in the beer industry, Cicerone may be a way to lean and kind of focus on.
So, but I just saw both of those certifications and I was like, "Ooh, that's a lot of testing there."
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about Phantom Canyon.
Okay.
I personally love to travel. So what would make me want to come and visit Phantom Canyon?
I would say, so we're kind of a one-stop shop. We have like I mentioned before, the historic building. So we have kind of the location, the historic building. You're going to walk in and see a bar that is 100 years old. That was collected from I believe it's a train depot that was down in Pueblo, Colorado. They deconstructed it, kind of brought it up. We also have a historic bar on the second floor. We are not just a kind of small brew pub like you would normally see at most places. We're in a 3-story, like I said, 120-year-old building. First floor is our main dining room and a big bar. Second floor is a pool hall and an outdoor patio. And then third floor is an event space. So that probably wouldn't bring you in unless you were local, but that's actually where I had my wedding reception. So I have a connection to the space and the building beyond just like being into beer. I mean, it was being into beer that kind of made me have my wedding reception there, but like I have some history there as well. But on top of that, I think we have kind of a great on the food side, we have great folks that are like working on the food, creating new beer specials. We're trying to incorporate. This is one of the things that I've been trying to do over the last year or so, is incorporate more beer and food pairing into the menus, and working with our front of house staff to be able to talk confidently about how to pair beer with food and make decent recommendations. So I think those are some really positive things. But I would also say, like, where our location is, we have a bunch of other great breweries around us, or a bunch of great restaurants around us, and then just the reason I moved to Colorado is because of the mountains. I love fishing. I like to go fishing. So like you could come get beers from us, grab a couple crowlers, and then go out for a hike. Go hike the incline, which is this. It's kind of a staircase that's near us, but it's super difficult and kind of goes up the side of Pikes Peak. But you could also go out and go fishing and all of that type of stuff. So I think those are all draws that would bring people to Phantom Canyon and to Colorado Springs. I think we have good beer. I think we have good food, but the community is great, and the outdoor draw is really one of the biggest things that I think that brings people to Colorado Springs.
A quick question about crowlers. The timing and logistics didn't permit it when I was in Colorado Springs, but could you bring a crowler to the Garden of the Gods? That's what it's for,
I believe
right? As
so.
a beer garden.
Yeah, I believe so. I'm not sure if they have any specific rules there, because I'm not sure if it's like Garden of the Gods, if it's like specifically a state park or considered a national park, or if there's any like specific rules. But I don't think anybody, like, we're in Colorado. I mean, like, I'm normally in Colorado, but like, I don't think anybody's going to mess with you if you had a crowler and you were enjoying a craft beer in Garden of the Gods.
Okay. It seems like what it's made for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, Wendy.
That's okay. I did just look it up, and according to AI, you cannot bring beer into the Garden of the Gods. They
Okay.
has specific rules stating that alcohol is not permitted.
Oh, that's
Just
sad.
want to put that out there for legal reasons.
For legal
So,
reasons, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the culture there at Phantom Canyon. Like, what are the types of beers that you guys focus on? And
So
how has it changed since you took over?
I would say, so we were founded in 1993, so we're celebrating our 32nd year this year. So we've been around for a really long time. What that means is we've been making classic styles for a really long time. So when I started attending or started frequenting Phantom Canyon back in the day, it was amber ales. There was a peated porter. There were some like old school, like your typical like malty, piney OG IPAs. Even like a beer engine. Like we still have beer engines on both floors. And so that's kind of what we were known for, is kind of, if you think of mid 2000s, there were a lot of breweries out there that were making English ales and, a lot of those type of classic English styles. We would delve into some like a German Pilsner and some other things. Over the years, it's kind of swung back and forth depending on who the head brewers are there. I would say that my preference, when I was interviewed, I told them I'm not the most like crazy creative brewer in the world. Like I'm not going to put pop rocks in your beer. I'm going to make like a classic style. Like I want to continue, like to me, experimentation is a different hop in a German Pilsner, because I'm trying to work on like perfection or like perfecting that specific style or learning more about those individual ingredients. And so like you'll see that our tap list is like we don't have a lot of adjuncts and different things in there. Our flagships are a Mexican lager, a Hefeweizen, a red ale, and kind of an old school IPA. And that's kind of our wheelhouse. And then the other taps that we have, we're able to kind of experiment. And I do like hoppy beers, so I typically try to keep a West Coast IPA on all the time. But my true love is really lagers. So like like right now we have a Helles on, a Fest beer, a Mexican dark lager, a Mexican lager, and we have a Dunkless Bock. We're working on potentially making a Baltic Porter. Like that's kind of where I like to be in terms of what I'm interested in brewing. And I think part of that is like I have a long, brewing past, but not necessarily professional brewing. Like when I got into beer, it was a really long time ago, but I ended up staying in the military for an extended period of time before I started professionally brewing. So I still have some like ideas about like classic styles that I want to try and I want to make. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of how I build our tap list, and how I want to kind of develop our culture. The nice thing is like people come to us, and I don't want to say that we're a restaurant first, but it's probably like 50-50 beer and food. And so, I don't want to say that a lot of the like kind of more trendy out there styles don't work as well with food, but I think the beer and food pairings with some of those styles are more difficult. Where like if a Märzen works well with lots of different types of food. It's going to work with hot wings, and it's going to work with a burger, and it's going to work with like lots of other things on the menu. So I think it kind of fits what I do. and as well as kind of our history. Like a 32-year-old brewery isn't one that's going to come out and make a triple dry hopped triple IPA or something like that. Like I'm trying to perfect our fest beer every year, make it better every single year, and perfect our barley wine every single year, and like kind of work on the tiny little details. So that, I think that's kind of, hopefully that answers your question, but like that's kind of my thought process and my approach to all of this.
It definitely does answer my question. I actually was thinking, man, I would have a hard time picking a flight based on everything that you were just saying. But I did notice that you have like preset flights on your menu.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I take it you're a pro flight guy.
I am. When I arrived, we had build your own flight. I am a build your own flight person myself. However, I probably like y'all, I go to a lot of breweries, and I have seen the changes from like 5 to 10 to 15 years ago. And a lot of times, I also worked at a brewery through COVID where you couldn't really talk to people. And the brewery that I worked at was all QR code. So there was not a lot of interaction between servers. And so what I learned was there's, my generation of drinkers wants to talk to their bartender and their server and have a conversation. But there's a huge, demographic that wants to just point at something on the menu and say, I'll have the hoppy flight, because they like hoppy beers and they don't want to talk through a bunch of different things. And so about 6 to 9 months into my time at Phantom, I introduced these pre-built flights onto the menu, and we ended up selling 3 times as many flights. And I think part of it was just conversations. Like beer, for like the 3 of us beer nerds, we want to talk about different beers, but for a lot of people, especially our clientele, and that's kind of what I saw, they just kind of want to go, you know what? Like, I want the seasonal flight. I want the fall flight, which actually we released today. I want the hoppy flight. I want our flagship flight, and it's easy for them. And what it's led to for us, and I'm not sure how like nerdy we can get into like some of the business side of it as well, but like what it's led to is more sales after that initial flight. Because like if they go, okay, I want your fest beer, and then they're like, I don't like that beer, and then they cash out and leave, then like that sale is done. But if they have the brewer's flight or the fall flight, then they may go, you know what, I really like this milk stout, I'm going to have a pint of the milk stout. And so it kind of continues that sale. So I am a flight guy, not personally, but like from a business perspective, I think it really works, and I think it helps, at least in our market. I'm not sure how that would necessarily work in everybody else's market, but in Colorado Springs, it seems to work pretty well.
When we talked about this on our last show, it was everyone was pro flight. We were all pro flight, but so it wasn't much of a discussion or fight about that. Ken, our previous host, would fight. It's a lot of work for the server sometimes, and you just have to be aware of what's going on. And,
it absolutely is. And I'm of the mindset that like sometimes you don't know a beer till you're halfway through it, and it's a pint, or you're on your second one. Like there have been several beers where I'm like, well, this is okay, and then I have a second one, and I'm like, actually, this is really great. So like I understand exactly the argument on the other side of that. And then part of that too is a balance with your front of house, and having enough taster glasses. Like that was one thing where I was like, oh, I'm going to introduce this new thing, and then we didn't have enough like actual trays for our taster glasses. Like the amount of time that it took to clean those glasses when it's super busy. So there is, there are some logistics behind it that need to be dealt with to actually get you to that spot. But if like, to me, the end state is a happy customer. And then from a business perspective, that second sale. So if I can get somebody a flight in their hand, and they're happy with at least one or two of those beers in there, and it leads to a second sale, then all of the other logistics that leads up to that are worth it. So
It was the second sale part was what caught me because last time we talked about this, it was I admitted that I'll often get a flight and then not trying to make a comment on anybody's beer or anything. I would then get a pint of something that wasn't in that flight.
yeah, I
I
mean,
do that a lot.
yeah,
I
I've
will
definitely done that
sometimes
as
get a
well.
pint from the flight, but usually, yeah, it's something new.
Yeah.
Generally, the beers that I pick in my flight give me a very good idea about
Yes.
the
The
brewery that
yeah.
I'm at.
Mhm.
So I can figure out, oh, this probably is going to be good then.
Mhm.
Yeah. If their delicate beers aren't particularly delicate, then maybe you want to go with the hot bomb for a pint.
Yeah. And I would say that that's probably, I don't know. I think that's kind of where our market is you want to try as many different things as possible on the list. Like I know I walk into a place and I'm like, I can't drink every beer here, but I kind of want to. Like I'm interested in lots of these different things. And I think that that's kind of where most consumers are nowadays. So if they do get a flight, a lot of times they're like, okay, yeah. Like for me, like my happy place is usually like a pale ale or an IPA. But I love lagers, and so I'll get like a flight of lagers and then be like, okay, yeah, just give me the West Coast IPA or something like that. And that's kind of what I, finish with or something like that. So
Um, I wanted to go back. I'm sorry, I didn't write it down, and I should have, because there was something that you said when you were talking that I wanted to ask. You kind of mentioned about how the beer scene has changed over the time that you've been in the scene. How what's kind of trending right now in Colorado Springs?
I mean, I think it's pretty standard of what's trending across most of the country, like IPAs, especially craft breweries, IPAs. The thing that's nice to see, at least from my perspective, is West Coast IPAs. I like bitter beers. And so West Coast IPA has kind of come back into prominence. There's still always going to be a hazy IPA. Like we have to keep a hazy on all the time, and it stays kind of near the top in terms of our sales list. So those are always going to be on there. I do think that lagers have started to move up the list. Um, Definitely like a pilsner, like if you like rice lager, pilsner, something light like that, seems to do really well. And what I've noticed is it's not necessarily seasonal. We're able to sell some lighter beers. I mean, our number one seller is Mexican lager, and it crushes like every week. So I think our demographic or our clientele, our customers are accustomed to that like kind of lighter beer, and so being able to upsell them to a pilsner or a Kolsch or something, that's a little bit more premium than that Mexican lager is not that big of a pivot. And so from our perspective, like we've seen great sales. Like this time of year, fest beer, like I don't make a Märzen just because I lived in Germany and I'm used to going to Oktoberfest or a lot of the other fests in Germany. And we get a pale colored German lager at this time of year. And so that's what I've always wanted to make when I came back to America, just to kind of educate folks on, typically you're not getting Sam Adams Oktoberfest in, Bavaria. Like that's not the beer that Germans are drinking at that time of year. They're getting a fest beer. But this time of year, if you put fest beer on it in Colorado Springs, it's crushing. So, and I think that that's a really great sign. Like people are kind of leaning into that. We also have a very outdoorsy fit population. And so like lighter ABV or lighter tasting beers, more crisp beers, tend to do very well here in Colorado Springs.
So you're not into the barrel aged stouts with the 40 different ingredients?
No, we make a barley wine every year, and my predecessors kind of went away from that. I've talked to some other brewers in town, and they're actually pivoting away from some of those bigger beers. I've talked to some who are successful at it, but I think that they're making really, really high quality versions of that style. And I think if you're making it once a year, it's really hard to like hit that mark every single time, if you know what I'm saying. Like if you're not getting the reps and sets of that beer, it's going to be difficult for you to provide a quality product every single time you do it. So I think that's kind of where we're at in Colorado Springs right now. I kind of hope that it changes. I want to do more barrel aging stuff because I like them in small amounts. Like I'm not into crushing 22 ounces of like barrel aged stuff, but I do appreciate the skill and the creativity that goes into, some of those beers. I just don't know if there's as much of a market for them here in Colorado Springs. In Denver, different story completely. There are some fantastic breweries up there. One that comes to mind is River North. They crush big, like barrel aged beers, like every time they release, and they're fantastic. But again, they're doing it over and over and over again, so they're getting those, they're getting that repetition, and can make quality product every single time.
I make fun of it with the 40 different adjuncts and stuff, but I will tell you, I am a sucker when it comes for a nice big barrel aged pastry stout.
Yeah.
It definitely.
I just to shout out another, I guess, kind of friend of a friend, but Bearded Brewer is a brewery that's up in Longmont, and I know Zach and some of the guys. They were where I started in Nebraska. They have a tap room out there, so Bearded Brewer actually started in Nebraska and then built a tap room, I believe, in Longmont. But I was just at a beer fest with them recently and had a Thai banana and peanut imperial stout, and it was fantastic. And again, not something that I'd like walk into a place and point at on a menu and order, but just really, really well done, and just like absolutely amazing. So I don't know. That's just another kind of shout out for one of our Colorado breweries.
That just made my mouth water a little bit when you started talking about
Yeah.
it. So, what style of beer? You said there are certain styles that you would still like to do. What is something that you haven't done that you want to do, or that you wish you could do more of?
I think we talked about it a little bit as some of the barrel aging stuff. So when I came in, we would do a annual release of barley wine, and we would typically make roughly about 8 barrels of it, like US barrels, and then we would transfer that, like after it was done fermenting, transfer it down into bourbon barrels and let it sit for, I don't know, 6 to 9 months, and then transfer all of those bourbon barrels into a serving vessel, carbonate them, and then release it. What I went through our sales data and saw that we were still pouring barley wine in almost to like summertime, and realized that like people aren't drinking barley wine in June and July. So instead of transferring 4 of those bourbon barrels, I only transferred 2 of them, and I held 2 more back. Um, I also came from a brewery cross strain that barrel aged things for extended periods of time, 27, 30 months. And so I know that like you're going to get most of the barrel character out within a couple months, but there's more that you're going to get out of it with that extended time. And so keeping those extra barrels back allows me to use those for blending stock for further years. So this year's barley wine will also be blended with a barrel of last year's barley wine. And so like part of my interest in doing this, I mean, it's really a long-term plan, but is to kind of hold some of the beers back and then be able to blend them together. So not just have a 2025 release, but have almost like a cuvee where it's like a little bit of 2024 and 2025 and kind of put them together and kind of see what I'm getting out of these different barrels. As well as each year I'm selecting different bourbon barrels, which also give a little bit of different character. So my 2024 barrels are Woodford Reserve. My 2025 barrels are Wild Turkey, and I can kind of blend some of those together and see what I'm going to get in that finished product. So that's just the barley wine, but like I said, I'd like to do more with like either imperial stout or some other large or like bigger beers that would lend themselves to barrel aging. So my lead brewer just 2 days ago brewed. He brewed at Bristol Brewing, which is the second oldest brewery in Colorado Springs. He brewed there for a really long time. He's for the last couple of years has made a London Brown, which is a classic style, one of the historical styles in BJCP, which you mentioned before. But he was like, let's make an imperial version of that. So we just brewed what will likely end up being about an 11 or 12% London Brown that we'll likely put into barrels as well. So again, not that barley wine, not a stout, but kind of somewhere in between because it's very dark, but doesn't have that significant like roast character. But those are the types of things that I'm interested in doing, those kind of projects, as well as I have a sour area that's kind of defunct, just because traditional sour beers or like your Pedio Lacto Brett, like that type of thing, doesn't sell as much anymore because you have to explain to people what Brettanomyces is. Like I want to try to bring some of that back, but like I don't know. There's also part of me that's like, is this a bridge too far, or am I pushing in a direction that the market's not really, that's kind of that portion of the market has kind of dried up. I just got a text the other day that Funkworks, which is one of the classic saison and just amazing breweries in Colorado, is closing their tap room. So like that is sad for me, just as a lover of saison and that style of beer. I kind of want to push in that direction, but again, like I can't push if I don't have a customer to necessarily buy that, if you know what I'm saying. So
yeah. My local had Bam Bière from Jolly Pumpkin on for months. And I'm pretty sure, because I took a poll of the bar staff, I'm pretty sure I was the only person drinking it. And people would come up and ask if they could try it, because it's a nice lowish percent, beer, and it's really refreshing. And I'd usually warn them, it's supposed to taste funky. It's going to taste funky. That seems to put people off. But something about that funk, I absolutely love it. It's so refreshing.
Yeah, we were a little spoiled here because of Jolly Pumpkin.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They did good educating there.
Got a lot more education about sours than I think most people do. I think it's cyclical though, because every few years you notice that things change. I know the hazy IPAs, man, they've been right at the top there for a really long time. But I have noticed, like you mentioned in Colorado, that the West Coast. I went to the store today, and probably half the cans on the shelf are West Coast IPAs. Yeah, like all these breweries that have been doing hazy IPAs like crazy are now starting to do more West Coast. I think West Coast IPAs here are very different than West Coast IPAs on the West Coast, though.
Yeah.
I don't think they taste the same.
How are they different? How would you describe them as different?
So the West Coast IPAs that I've had in Seattle, and they were much more, they were a lot more balanced. They still had the hot punch. They were still a lot, but here they just don't have that balance that they have there.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it went through kind of a period of time where they were still, the Midwest IPAs were more, they felt more malty, but still had lots of hops. And then the West Coast had really tropical hops. They might have some malt, did have some malt to them, but not as, then you'd get the really, just the almost thin, but just hops. That's all. That's like almost hop water. And you'd find some of those around too. I feel like it's the Midwest version that I was used to anyway that's coming around now. And I welcome that a lot. I think that's a good balance.
Yeah.
It's different from when the IBU wars were going on.
Yes,
and that might be
definitely.
what I'm thinking of too, because some of those West Coasts were from before the IBU wars really got going, and things got kind of stupid then.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it turned me off on IPAs a lot. I really had to work hard to develop a palate to like IPAs in general.
Yeah. You mentioned a hazy IPA earlier, and I have to ask because one of my brewer friends who we've had on the show before, he brews one called Under Duress, which I think says everything about how he felt about hazy beers. But he started to like it now. And did you feel that way about yours? Like it was something that you had to brew because everybody has to have a hazy, and now you've come to like it? Or
No.
okay.
So I was part of the crowd, I guess, back in the day when like Heady Topper and the Alchemist and like some of the beers from the Northeast were kind of making their way across the United States, where I was like I'm a clear beer guy. So like if I make a lager that's supposed to be clear, it's going to be clear. If I make a hazy, it's going to be hazy. Like I'm about what it's supposed to look like. And my first reaction to hazy IPAs was kind of like, I don't know. I kind of recoiled from it a little bit. But then having some of those beers and the hop expression in them, especially fresh, if you could get a fresh can from someplace, I started to kind of see what it was and appreciate it for what it was. And so very early on, I was interested in trying to make one of those beers when I was home brewing. And then when I transitioned into professional brewing, the first brewery that I started at was a hazy IPA factory. So that's what I made. I mean, we did 3 turns a day, so 20 barrels 3 times a day, multiple days a week. And I just kind of got used to that profile and what we were trying to achieve. And I'm not saying that it's my preference, but I understand the skill that goes behind making a quality hazy IPA. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I have one on tap almost all the time, but I use mine as a vehicle to explore different hop varieties as well as educate my staff and my customers. So I have typically one hazy IPA on all the time, which is weird nowadays. But it's called Bear versus Bison. Right outside of our brewery, we have 2 sculptures. One that's a giant bear. It's like a big metal bear and a big metal bison. And so there are a lot of other breweries around the country that do like a 2 hop thing. So like Other Half, Hop Butcher, like there's a bunch of other breweries that do a 2 hop thing. And I was like, well, I'll take inspiration from these 2 statues that are outside, Bear versus Bison. I'll put 2 hops together and just kind of explore what these hops are gonna do either on their own or kind of melded together. So right now we have Ilani, which is a kind of a new hop that's out there, Ilani and Citra. And then we have one that's coming up. I was just able to purchase some Nelson Sauvin and Strata. So our next version is coming out with that. So it's a way to be, just because there's always going to be a market, especially in Colorado Springs, for hazy IPAs. Like I said, it's near the top of our list of sales all the time. But it's a way that like I can be interested and my service staff can be interested, my front of house folks can be interested, and my customers can also be interested because I can say, hey, this is a Southern Hemisphere hop, and it's going to have some of these characters to it, and they may say, oh, I don't get that, but I get this note, and then that helps me because I may not have ever perceived it that way, but now they give me that word, and now forever that word is associated with what I'm perceiving in that beer, and so that's kind of how I've approached hazy IPA from there. Like when I first started, it was Citra and Mosaic. That was our hazy IPA at the brewery that I started at. So I'm very familiar with that combination, as you guys probably are as well,
Yes.
and everybody who's
Yeah,
listening.
everybody, I think, at this point, yeah.
But like being able to try out some new things and put things together that may not necessarily go together. Like we did one with Nectaron and Matueka. Okay, two Southern Hemisphere hops, yay! But like you put another like Cashmere and Sabro. Okay, well, like how is that going to work together? And so that's kind of how I've approached it too. So we've had some that are received well, and then some that are not received as well. And we learn from kind of both of those.
Cool.
It's funny that you say that when that they'll give you a word that you then kind of associate with it, because one of my favorite styles is a Belgian triple. And I always thought of the clove and the banana when I was drinking it. And I bought one for a friend of mine when we were out one night. And she said, "Oh, it tastes like bubble gum."
Yeah.
I never,
and then you probably couldn't.
once associated bubblegum with that beer until she said it. And then I was like, oh, I do get that.
Yeah.
So now sometimes I'll get bubblegum, sometimes I get banana, but.
Yeah. A lot of times I'm like, somebody will say something and it'll just click. And then I can't not smell that, or can't not associate whatever they said with that specific beer. So like, I don't know, peanut shells or something like that in, a strong like barrel aged stout, or I don't know. I like bourbon and I like cocktails and things like that as well. So, and there's a little bit of carryover between the two. But I've had people who like bring stuff up, like a specific note on a bourbon, where I'm like, I wasn't getting that until you said it, and now I know exactly what you're talking about. So. But I think it's really helpful. I try to do that a little bit on our beer menus, but at the same time, like I don't want to like lead somebody, down a path that I also don't want to bullshit them on a beer and be like, oh, this is like a tropical hop bomb, when it's like, oh, this is subtle stone fruit or something like that. Like I would rather, kind of maybe undersell it than try to like go crazy and oversell it. So.
There has been plenty of beer that I try to taste the beer before I figure out what the tasting note should be, because then I have kind of my own idea of what's going on. But there are times when I look at stuff and I'm like, I am not getting that.
Yeah.
My favorite story, and I bring it up a lot, is the brewery defunct here now that made the Bacon Face Brown, which was named after their dog. And if you check it Untapped, everybody says, oh yeah, you can really taste the bacon in this. And there's no bacon, there's no smoked malts, there's nothing like that in there. It's really just a brown named after a dog whose name was Bacon Face.
Yeah,
that's funny.
So,
I recently
you can put that into someone's mind if you want to.
I just recently got my hands on some anchovy hops. And you probably know where this is going, but like I did a bunch of research on like the styles of beer that people have used that with and whatnot. So, like you go to Untapped and kind of look at how people are describing beers and what they've named beers, and there were just a ton of breweries that made a beer with anchovy hops, and people they were like, I don't even taste anchovies in this, and you're like, like. It's just the name of the hop. So like as much as you try to kind of help, sometimes folks just don't kind of understand either the beer name, the beer description, or the ingredients or something like that. So anchovy hops do not taste like anchovies.
They do not taste like anchovies. Bacon Face Brown does not have bacon in it.
Yeah.
Brian, it has been wonderful talking to you. We are coming up on the 1 hour mark, and so we are going to start to wrap things up like we usually do by asking questions that may or may not be related to beer. And I will go ahead and get started because I jumped into this. And usually I ask about board games, but this time I have to ask because I've been to Colorado Springs. But it was the last time was before Untapped even existed as a thing. So I have no beer history there that I can easily look into. But one thing I do remember is going up Pikes Peak. And so I have to ask you, are Pikes Peak donuts worth the drive?
I say no, but they're worth the hike. I've hiked to
Mm.
the top of Pikes Peak. I have actually, there's probably going to be some people who shame me in the comments, possibly. I did not hike it from Bar Trail, so from the front side, like the Colorado Springs side, which is, I think, 12.6 miles one way, all the way to the top. And that's a rough hike. I hiked it from Devil's Playground on the backside. Actually, with one of the guys who I'm here on this trip with, again, kind of crazy. But we hiked up to the top and got donuts and then ran to not get struck by lightning because the afternoon thunderstorms come in. But I would say the drive up there, it's worth doing, but I don't think the donuts are worth the drive. The view is definitely worth the drive. And then I would say if you have an opportunity and you have a little bit of time to acclimatize to the elevation, hike it. Like especially from the backside, from like the crags, the Devil's Playground side, it's definitely worth doing. Actually, either side. If you're a badass and you want to hike it from Bar Trail, that's like basically a marathon up and down. So, but yeah,
But there's a railroad too, right? So you can take the railroad
yeah,
down.
you can take the Cog Railway as well,
Yeah.
or you can hike up and like hitchhike down. I don't know, like you can do like however you want to do it.
Right. Maybe
But
get
I
in
would,
with the employee bus on the way down.
yeah, exactly.
My question is, what is the one beer I should try if I come into your brewery this week?
This week, so we just released, yeah, today, I'm looking at my watch, our milk stout. So I brewed a milk stout for the first time last year. We entered it into GABF, got some really great comments. This year we didn't brew it in time to get it to GABF, but we just released it this week, and I think it's pouring, really well. I am a fan of stouts. I don't think there's enough
Me
stout
too.
in the world.
True
And
story.
I also don't think it's a winter drink. You can drink it
Right.
all year round.
Stout
Um,
season is every season.
yeah, exactly. So the issue is we have a hard time selling it. So typically I make it only, around this time of year. So I would say Moonlight Milk Stout would be the beer that I would come in and try. If you're a lager person, a beer that's getting close to kicking but still doing very well, like brewers and beer nerds know that as something sits on the line longer, it typically goes downhill, especially IPAs. Lagers tend to last a little bit longer, and this one is still drinking really great. It's our El Borracho Feliz, which means the happy drunk in Spanish. It's a Mexican dark lager, and we
Mm.
serve it like half liters at a time. It's still pouring really great. I don't know. I kind of want to make my plug for dark beers just because there's not as many dark beers out there anymore, and then just lagers in general. So, El Borracho Feliz, I'd say those two.
Awesome.
Sounds great.
Yep.
Brian, do you have anything coming up that you want to plug or let us know about so that people can find it?
Coming up, no, we're at GABF next week. Since we're local, it's a pretty short drive for us to head up and head up there. We're going to be in the Prost section, so if you want to come say hi to me or any of our team at Phantom Canyon, please come by and see us at Prost or in the Prost section at the Phantom Canyon booth. We don't really have any events coming up. Most of our stuff is in the summer, and we just finished up Oktoberfest at our spot. So nothing specific to plug besides our
Okay.
app. If you're going to be in town and you want a free beer at Phantom Canyon, download our app. It's in the App Store. Just look for Phantom Canyon. You can come in and get a free beer. Pretty much anything we have on tap. Not pretty much. Everything that we have on tap, you can select as a free beer. So just download the app. All you got to do is register, and you can get a free beer if you come by and see us. So, and if you see me in the brewery, just knock on the window and like say hi and give you a brewery tour. So
Awesome.
Nice. What do you got going on, Rob?
Oh, I'll be in Orlando this week, but I'll be back in time for the show with Burnham Brewing on Friday.
Awesome. I'm really excited about the Burnham show. It's a beer in Indiana brewery in Indiana that I can just started getting here in Michigan. So I was so excited when I got to go there and actually meet them and get them to come on the show. I don't have a whole lot coming on this month. My parents are taking a trip. They're taking a vacation so that I can take a vacation later. So I just have like a beer and wine tour in Petoskey that I will be able to chat about later and post some things on. And then in November, I'm going on the cruise. So
Sounds good. Yeah.
that's all I got.
Yeah. Well, it's good that things are slowing down a little, I think.
Yeah.
All right. With that, I think that we will go ahead and end the show the true way that we end every show and say, whatever you think of your beer, we think it's better on draft.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.